Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears. Our guest today is Cory Mcgookin. He is the CEO of Sapient Coaching, Consulting, and Training here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region. Cory, I'm delighted to have you here with me today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Cory's also a member of our Leadership Fredericksburg faculty. And so we've really gotten to know each other over the last couple of years. We're sitting down together today in December of 2022, and we've probably known each other a bit for about a year and a half or so, I would say.
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, we were in a coaching cohort during the great shutdown where we got to know each other virtually before coming together in person, discovering when we were meeting virtually that we were living in the same region, and at the time he was working just up the road from us here, where I'm in downtown Fredericksburg, and he was working at Quantico and living in Stafford. He is a leadership development and training professional, coach, educator, and consultant, and he has a passion for those who serve the public. He retired from the FBI in early 2020, where he ended his career as the chief of the FBI National Academy. He had an extensive career prior to that we're going to talk about a little bit here in just a moment. I just also want to mention that he holds a graduate degree in leadership from Bellevue University, graduate certificate in adult education from Northeastern University, and certifications with the ICF, International Coaching Federation, as an associate certified coach, ACC, and he's also a disc trainer. He's done that here with our team, which was pretty eye-opening. And he's just a great guy.
Well, thank you.
I like reading all that and going, I'm sitting across from such a great human. It's awesome. Yeah, but go ahead. Tell us about that leadership journey. Tell us about you, Cory.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. I was born in South Bend, Indiana, so I'm from the Midwest. Okay. Come from humble beginnings, but had good parents who taught me good values. I'm very grateful for that. And coming out of high school, I went to college. I was the first in my family ever to go. And unfortunately, I lasted one semester.
Awesome.
Not because I screwed up, just financial aid issues. They said things changed. I didn't have enough money to continue, so I went into the Air Force. I enlisted.
Well, now, wait, that's a big step. Mm-hmm. I just went, how did you come to that conclusion?
Before I even went to college, I was being recruited by, I have an older brother and a friend was in the Navy, and he was doing the hard recruiting. And so I took the tests, and I was going through the motions because I really didn't know how to say, no, I don't want to join the Navy. So, kind of that shock of being 18, not having a plan. You finish your first semester of college, they say you have to leave our college because you owe $800 and I don't have $800. You're kind of like, what do I do now? And that was always kind of an option. But my dad always told me, he said, you need to go Air Force if you go military. You're not.
Okay.
You don't fit the personality of Marine or Army. I probably could have done okay Navy, but he said you question people. You're a little more informal. You don't want the harsh structure of an Army. You want kind of the looser Air Force environment. That would suit you. And he was absolutely right.
Your dad seems to have a great perspective.
Yeah, he served in the Army.
Okay.
And, back during the Vietnam time. And so he knew, and it always blew him away. It was like in the Air Force, you hear people calling each other by their first name.
Okay.
So we would never do that. And I was like, well, that sounds more my personality to call someone Jim, not Captain Jones, and he had a good perspective, and that was real good mentorship, pushing me in the right direction.
Okay, so you start down that journey. Continue.
Yeah. So I become a Spanish linguist, although the problem is I don't know Spanish, but the military always has an answer, right? So they send you to a school, which is awesome because it's in Monterey, California.
Okay.
And 6 months, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you're in class learning Spanish. And it's great education, and what an experience, but I tell you, everything in school came easy to me, and I was like, I'm smart. Suddenly, I'm struggling. And my entire career is going to be a linguist, to know the language, and I'm finally finding it's in the one field, or a field, that I'm really not good at. And that was such a test. I had to work harder than I ever worked, and just to be good enough, but not nearly as good as a lot of those around me who were putting in like 20% of the effort.
Oh my goodness.
It was quite a life lesson, like a wake-up call of, there's different talents you have, different things you're good at, other things you struggle at, and, I'm kind of a Strengths Finders fan, which says find those things that align with your strengths.
Yeah.
Don't just constantly work on your weaknesses, because they're weaknesses for a reason. You're just not naturally good at them.
How did you push through that instead of just, you're still a young person, and you a lot of times someone would just give up.
Yeah, it's kind of a mindset that I think I was very naive, and there was never options. It was, okay, I'm going to go to college. No one had ever gone to college in my family, and we didn't even know how to fill out the paperwork, but like, okay, that's just what I'm going to do. And that didn't work out. Then, like I said, now I'm in this, and it's not working out, but like, well, this is what I do, so you just got to figure it out. And at every step, it felt like quitting wasn't an option, or doing nothing wasn't an option, so it's just figure it out.
It sounds like you may have learned how to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I later would come to find learning is probably my favorite thing.
Okay.
But there's a difference learning something you have to learn and something you don't enjoy or you're not good at versus being able to learn things you're passionate about.
So where did you go from there?
I had about almost exactly a 10-year career. Basically, the decade of the 90s, I was in the Air Force. From 1990 through near the end of 1999. Met my wife. We had 2 kids, only one at that point. But, thinking about your journey, life just keeps taking you places, and then you continue and you look back and you're glad, right, that college didn't work out or that these things happen. So learned good lessons as an enlisted Air Force person. It wasn't a remarkable career. I think I did a good job. But I tell you what I found there. Again, operationally, I was not as good as my colleagues, who I always joke, the career field was like me and like 45 Puerto Ricans who are native Spanish speakers. So you put on the headphones to listen to, an enemy country's communications, and you got to type out what they're saying in Spanish. And there's times I just couldn't quite hear what they're saying or not really understanding, and the natives, it was easy for them. So I realized I wasn't bringing as much value operationally. And at some point, you could be a detriment. When you're on a plane 12 nautical miles from another country, listening to their communications, your job is to hear if, and the other country says over the radio, hey, launch an aircraft to go shoot down that American plane. You need to hear that. You need to tell the pilot. So there's a security issue, too, about being good at the job. And I worked hard, realized that I wasn't as good as others. So I said, where can I bring value? And I started moving into training. So now I could go in and learn everything I could about that enemy country's equipment and their rank and the intelligence that helps make you better at the job so you know what you're hearing. And then in English, I could teach those classes to the operators who were good. So I didn't have to be the best operator. I could be good at training and make them better. And that, now suddenly I'm bringing value to the group versus being one of the weaker players.
So when you come full circle to now, that really led you to your whole future path, right?
It did. At every step, I found out I liked it. And I'm definitely not like one of those naturally good teachers, speakers, whatever. I've learned to get good at it from doing it. And I enjoy doing it, but it wasn't natural. But that's fine with me because, it was something to kind of dig into and work at and feel pride when you got better. So then upon leaving the Air Force, I got hired on by the FBI. And I had a couple-year wait, so there's a little gap just because they weren't hiring until 9/11 hit. And then immediately they were hiring a lot real quick. So immediately after 9/11, that next January, I got into the FBI in 2002. And started my career doing agent stuff. I was in the Chicago area working the violent crimes, the gangs, the drugs, and learning how to be an agent and investigator and do that work well. But eventually I knew I wanted to get back to training, and that's how I came to this region. An opportunity opened up to teach new agents here at Quantico in 2008. So I took that opportunity.
So you had about 6 years in that Chicago area.
Yes.
I bet you have a lifetime of stories from that moment in time.
It was fast-paced. There are a lot of things happen. I worked with great people. I learned a lot. It was a very pivotal time in my life. But I tell you, one story that comes out of that is I was having the time of my life. It really fit me. I was good at it. Sometimes I link back. I was really working with people in society who are struggling, like this whole, where all the gangs are and all the problems are.
Right.
And I think coming from humble beginnings helped me connect with them because I never felt better than them. I just looked at their circumstances and the way things were, and I was able to even build relationships and empathy with people in those circumstances, and building that trust helped me get more information and do my job better. So I had a lot of success at that. But the thing is, I could not find a balance at home. And by this time, I've been married several years. My daughter's born. She's 2, she's 3. And every day there was something going on where the story I'd like to say is my wife would say, I need you Thursday night to take Hallie to Girl Scouts.
Right.
I'm like, okay, got it. You sure? Yep, got it. Well, Thursday at about 3 o'clock is when my source would call me and say, hey, these guys trying to sell me 3 AK-47 guns. And we got to get those off the street. So I'm like, okay, set up. We're going to go do an undercover buy. We're going to, And in that world, they're not good businessmen. They never show up on time. Nothing ever goes smooth. So you end up spending 6, 7, 8 hours on that. So another call home to go, hey, I'm not going to be home tonight, sorry. And that seemed to be every night. And it took me a little while, I think, to understand how much she was struggling with me working crazy hours and never being available. And even when I'm home on the phone, that I always say I respect those who find a way to do that well, because I didn't know how, so I had to transfer. I had to take a job here in Quantico that just got me into a more regular teaching job where those pulls on life weren't there.
Yeah, it was all consuming, right?
It was. Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I'm picturing, I know it's a little different, but I'm picturing, I think it's The Godfather Part 3, when Al Pacino, Don Corleone, he says, I keep trying to get out and they pull me back in.
Absolutely.
And isn't it like that with anything that's so important, I guess, in a way? Something so different maybe, but something that you specialize in maybe?
Yeah.
And the more you know, it's hard to walk away from.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think it's that different, right? I was at the FBI, and I know that's glamorized by Hollywood and such.
Sure.
But the fact is, right, there are important jobs that people are doing that you care about doing them well. It's going to take a full investment of your time and energy. And I think and maybe that's the stage of being new at something that you need to be in. But I think you have to mature to an area where you can also live life and find that balance and be good in other areas of your life. And I'll say I struggled with that. And I honestly do look up to people who can do that well.
Right.
Because it's hard no matter what your business is. Imagine being a business owner. Your whole life is that business.
Yeah.
And how do you say I need to take a break, take a vacation? How do you start doing those things? I think that's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So now I'm picturing you. It's 2008. You've landed in Virginia soil.
Yep. That's
right. You kind of rolled all over the United States, but now you're here.
Yeah.
The headquarters of the Marines, Quantico. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
We probably passed each other somewhere along the way.
Exactly.
But what is life like then?
I found that was definitely a great fit. My passion, I was teaching source development or source development, source recruiting for new agents. And I had a lot of experience doing that. And there wasn't good training in the FBI back then. And so you kind of learn how to do it on your own, and you learn what works. Well, by the time I'm returning to teach, they've got some curriculum, and they got some of the best business leaders and CIA and FBI people who do it well. And they created a curriculum that I realized were all the things I did, but it took me years to learn how to do. So now it's like, I'm glad to be saying, hey, you're at the academy, you haven't even become an agent yet. I'm going to teach you the things that will make you good immediately instead of learning things the hard way. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And so here's the real key to what I found is I love learning. Now, I love teaching because I get to share what I learned and get feedback, and I learn through teaching.
Right.
So selfishly, I like it because I like learning. And when your job is go research rapport building so that you can be a better instructor, like I was paid to go do what I love, which is to go learn and research things. So it was the best job. I did that for a couple of years. I bounced around. I took a stint at Congressional Affairs, working on the Hill for the FBI.
What was that like?
I'm gonna be honest. Now that I'm out, it was difficult. It was, and I'd say the FBI, from all my years, has never been political. Right? It's just do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Yeah.
But you're mixing in a world where they operate differently, and that made it so hard. They would be playing games, and the person who led that at the time was someone who came from the Hill to be the leader of our Congressional Affairs because of his experience on the Hill. But I just felt there's a little conflict where my House Homeland Security Subcommittee was saying, hey, we want to get the director in to talk to our committee. And I'm taking that back up the chain, and the leader's like, tell him he's busy. And I remember thinking, like, is he busy? Like, just tell him he's busy. And I'll be honest, like, not being completely honest and truthful isn't, like, what we do. And that was, like, so you're not a good liar. And I don't know if you want to call it lying or whatever. But you're going back and you're trying to go, hey, he's not busy. Well, when is he available? We'll change our dates whenever he's available. And then they're giving you another story. And being in between like that, I found very difficult. And the way Capitol Hill worked just didn't kind of fit my values and the way I've always thought. Why can't we all just be honest with each other? Like, why can't we just say what it really is? So, I mean, there were positive parts, and I learned a lot, and it was a great experience. But you take that, and you add commuting to D.C. now.
Oh, of course.
From Stafford. During the period.
Describe that. Some of our listeners might not know.
Oh, my Lord.
They haven't been here.
Unpredictable, always long, and you're always a couple minutes away from traffic just suddenly jamming and stopping. And I was, and if the listeners from this area, they know slugging, but a lot of people find that's the most amazing thing. And it worked. But you go to a lot, you park your car, you stand in a line, and random stranger pulls up, and then you need 3 people for the HOV, high occupancy vehicle lane. So they're looking for 2 random strangers going in the same direction to jump in their car.
Y'all listening to this outside of our area?
So you're standing there and someone says, who's going to Pennsylvania Avenue?
Yeah.
Like me and me. Okay, jump in my car. And then you sit silently for 45 minutes while they drive and drop you off. You say thank you. It's a weird thing. But the real thing for me, I think we're back to that balance thing.
Yeah.
Balance was easy teaching at the academy. Now I'm taking this job because it's a great experience and new things I want to do. Well, it's about the time my daughter's starting to play softball. And I want to be the coach, and I love sports. I went to Indiana State University for 1 semester as a PE major. I was going to be the next Bill Belichick to talk your language.
We all know who that is, right, listeners? Look it up if you don't, and I feel sorry for you.
So I was going to be the next great coach. That was my passion. That was my love. Life took me in other directions, and probably thank God.
Because it can still be your passion now. You're not consumed with it, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I loved particularly coaching young women and these were young girls. Like, I always felt there's so much to learn in sports, the teamwork and all those things. And I think it was more natural for boys to do those things. I thought the girls need these same opportunities.
Yeah.
And they're great kids. So I loved coaching, but it was a constant. The Capitol Hill likes to work more of a 9 to 6 or 7 and then transition to the bar. And I wanted to get there early and leave early. And again, not a good fit. I'm getting done everything I can to get on a bus that brings me home, and then traffic's bad, and I'm late for practice again. Constantly stressing over minutes in the commute. And I said, I can't take this. Like, this is no way to live life. Even if I was enjoying the job, I think even then I would have said,
No, it's not for the faint of heart.
No. If you lived way up north and the commute wasn't as bad, that would have been great. But living here, where it's better living in Stafford area,
Sure.
it just was so hard. So I stepped down, went back to being an agent, worked in the Manassas office, spent years working there, doing different things before my dream job to kind of bring it home back to the FBI Academy, to the National Academy as an instructor of leadership for law enforcement executives. So real briefly for the audience, 4 times a year, the FBI brings in about 270 law enforcement executives from around the world, and they live in residence for 10 weeks, and they're taking 6 college classes and getting all kinds of experiences and networking. So I was brought in as one of the leadership instructors.
It's wonderful.
It was incredible, and again, I'm paid to learn and to research all the best leadership topics and the latest books and podcasts, and then take it to class. And eventually I got promoted to run all the instructors. In my last couple of years, I ran the program itself.
Yeah, and so when we were talking one other time, you were sharing how then you really did transition to a time of managing a lot of people, and actually what that part felt like too.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to stand up in a class and repeat things you've read in books and heard, and this is the way leadership's done.
Yes.
And then you get promoted, and I always say typically your job gets less fun when you get promoted. Yeah. And now your job becomes managing people, the meetings and the metrics and all the little human things that make leading hard you have to deal with, and, put your money where your mouth is kind of moment there.
So tell us what you found to be the most challenging in that period of time.
Absolutely, there was not enough time. And maybe I'm just realizing this as I say it. I keep coming back to that balance of life. I had enough work to keep me there till 6, 7, 8 o'clock every single night and still not get caught up. But again, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go home. I have a family. I'm going to have hobbies. I'm going to have friends and all those things. So you are trying to get things done that, management's asking you to get done and requirements. And along the way, your people are saying, hey, I'm having an issue with this other person or this. So the right thing to do is to carve out time for your people.
Correct.
And it's easy to say that, but then you also know something else will not get done. And I have to say, I almost ran an experiment. We taught a lot of leadership classes, and you would go list all the traits of a great leader, and you wouldn't be surprised at the list, and they're always the same. So I kind of said when I moved into leadership, I'm going to do those things. I'm literally just going to do them. And I did, and I think I did well. But you know what happened? I missed deadlines. There were things to get done. I literally would not meet certain metrics. And when asked why, I was like, well, there were these personnel issues or this.
Because it requires more time.
Yeah.
When you add it all in and you don't have enough time. And that is it. And then you hear someone go, well, that's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
Right? Or the title or whatever. For me, the balance, it's a much different, very small organization and all. But where I know that rubber meets the road and not meeting my deadlines, not an option for me.
Right.
So for me, it's usually it's a Saturday morning or afternoon or something that I go ahead and plan ahead. So yeah, it's still taking away from that But is it because it's dedicated time that I planned for, if you will?
Yeah.
So it's not on those weeknights,
Right.
or other things that may be family stuff. For example, I excuse me, I take my dad to breakfast every Saturday morning at 8:30.
Yeah.
But as we're ending that time together, I'm picturing, okay, 3 hours at the office, and then I'm back to my weekend or whatever. And it's not every Saturday, but it's knowing that that's how I have to balance it. And then you have to have your comfort with that. Like, I think my change has been, that was really the norm for a lot of years for me, way more.
Right.
Like all the time, you know. And so now maybe it's every other Saturday or so. It's not every single one.
Yeah, when I'd asked a lot of leaders I respect in the FBI, you know, the struggle. And most of them had the same answer, which was, you just have to put a couple hours blocked off on your schedule for getting things done that matter.
Yep.
Like, and you don't, like, you care about your people and you're giving them time, but they also know on your schedule there's a couple hours blocked off, and the things that you really, really got to get done, you get done.
Yeah, you have to.
And, you know, I tried that, and I tell you, some of my feelings is I'd violate it. You're like, okay, well, so-and-so is really upset about this or that. She, you know, I'll just give her a few minutes so she can feel heard and then get back, and then it wouldn't be a few minutes. And then pretty soon, didn't keep those hard boundaries, which meant you stayed later or something else didn't get done. So that absolutely, I always come back to that. There's not enough time. And, you know, you talk about morale and what that takes. I guess I'll say this. There were plenty of people I know who were managers whose focus was, these are the things we need to get done, and we're going to get them done. And that came at the expense of, in some ways, the people.
Right.
So the morale was low there. People didn't necessarily enjoy working there. They were looking to transfer, and that leader didn't have the best reputation. But management above him was like, oh, he's doing a good job. He's getting in all of his reports. Everything's getting done. He's doing great. And that wasn't my style. In some ways, you know, maybe me trying, I care about my people, so I'm putting focus there. And I'm not highlighting how awesome I am for not getting things done, because I know there were leaders above me who would say, hey, the people love working for you. This is great, but you missed this email. You didn't get this. You didn't get that. So I just found in some ways there's no magic answer.
Right.
And it's not exactly an either or, but I just felt like I was always trying to do the best I could, but I always wanted to consider the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Well, I met you at the tail end of that part of your journey, and here we are today.
Yeah.
This week we have our Leadership Fredericksburg class together. Yeah. Both of us later in today are meeting with our colleague, J.R. Flatter.
That's right.
Yeah. He might listen to this. What should we say about that colleague and mentor we both have?
You know, for me, it is great to find somebody who is ahead of you in the journey, who's been through the steps, and will openly talk about the lessons learned or the right path. I know JR obviously is a big proponent of coaching because we've certified coaches through his company, but he also, I think, really enjoys taking on that mentor role and advising. And I don't absolutely everything he says say that's the right answer, but he's so open with sharing the lessons he learned from going from military to private industry to building a company and doing all those things that I feel he gives real answers. You know, knowing the requirements and how hard things are. So I really appreciate talking to him.
Likewise, when I met him, he had heard about Leadership Fredericksburg. It was 2011. Somebody told him that was a chamber member, you should be a mentor for Leadership Fredericksburg. So he called up our office, and we didn't know him. He was a chamber member, but he hadn't become involved with the organization. He was just member in name only, if you will.
Right.
And he called up and said, I'm volunteering to be a mentor. Well, you know how Leadership Fredericksburg is. This is a real little army of, you know, this family that that has this connection. We didn't know who he was. Yeah. So, here's this guy with this PhD and this company and all that, and little old me. And I just said back to him, well, you have to take Leadership Fredericksburg to be a mentor. So here it's application time. Go ahead and apply.
Take my class.
Yeah. And he did. He went ahead and applied and came and sat right there in class with his PhD, and he never sat in class like, I'm the expert, know. Yeah. He went through the whole thing. He had a mentor assigned to him. That was actually one of Dave Quarterman, one of our colleagues. That was one of Dave's colleagues at his. I look back at that and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't match him with Dave, because now we all work together on the faculty. Yeah. And so as soon as that year, that 9-month program ended, JR called me and said, can we get together for lunch or something? And we started chatting, about just leadership things. And he later joined the chamber board, ended up chairing the chamber board. We just worked so closely together on so many initiatives, and also eventually became our faculty lead with Leadership Fredericksburg, and just been an honor and joy working with him. I've learned so much too. Yeah.
What a lesson in there where, obviously he's got a PhD, he's got a lot of experience, but he comes in your class not as a, let me show you what I know.
Right.
But I'm sure he'll tell you he learned a lot, because he's always trying to learn more.
He would say that when we would be checking in, he'd say, I learned more from every one of you, every time. He was known for saying that. He still is. Yeah. Great person. I look forward to seeing him here in just a few minutes. Yeah. So we're going to wind down our time together for right now. And I want to have you back on here because we have so many great things to chat about.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But for today, let's wind down, and let me ask if you do have any kind of a favorite motto or anything you'd like to share with the listeners.
Yeah, actually I do. And funny enough, speaking of JR, there was one of the instructors at the National Academy at the FBI who introduced me to JR because they were in the Marines together. Mm-hmm. And John's his name, and John had this quote that blew me away when he would tell his class, you have to delegate everything you can possibly delegate so you can do what only you can do.
Yes.
And I'd never seen it that way. And in this context, when he'd explain to the people in the National Academy class, hey, if you're the chief, you need to be the chief. You need to go to the city manager and push for more resources if you need new cars or a bigger budget, all those things. That's your job, whether you like it or not. That's what they expect of you. And if you're doing things other people could be doing because either you're good at them or that's what you enjoy, no one else can do that portion of your job. And for me, the clarity of that statement almost gave me permission to push more work to others for their development, to give me space. Like I said, it's all about time management. To give me space to go do the things that really, really have to be done strategically to move us forward. And I think that's what it was. It gave me permission to do it and not feel I was slacking or putting more work on others, because you are putting more work on others. But as a team, I think that's the way it has to be. So let me say it again. Delegate everything you can possibly delegate so you can do what only you can do. Love that.
Great. I love it too, and it's really good words to kind of wrap things up here. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share?
No, I'd love to end on that.
Okay, that sounds great. I've really enjoyed our time together and delving into your journey. Your life story is fascinating, and I enjoy working with you.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I'm glad to be part of the chamber. Yep. The work that we're doing here is so important, and I always say my work in the FBI was always elsewhere. Like, I never really lived where the work happened.
Right.
Now I get to try to really support the community where I live, and I'm glad for the opportunity, so I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cory. And we are wrapping it up. I am Susan Spears, and our guest today was Cory Mcgookin, and he is the CEO of Sapient Coaching, Consulting, and Training here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region. If you've not already liked and subscribed to the Chambers We Are Business podcast, please go ahead and do so. We'd love to have you join us, and you'll know when new episodes are coming around. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.